Imagine stepping into a real-life role-playing game, where stories aren't just told, they're lived.
A game featuring immersive environments to explore, engaging characters to befriend or betray, and a branching story arc determined by your decisions, happening in real time over multiple days. Now imagine playing this game alongside dozens of other enthusiastic and dedicated players, including your closest friends and family. What would that be like?
This is a video about such a game, but it's also about so much more. It's about the power of storytelling, how it moves us, shapes us, and connects us. It's about discovering ourselves in unexpected places. And it's about loss, and how all things are finite and sometimes gone too soon. But above all else, this is a story of relationships, love, friendship, and adventure. My name is Double Crit Fail, and while this channel is usually about traditional TTRPGs, today I'm talking about the best role-playing game I've ever played, Disney's Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser.
Now, I know what you might be thinking, but trust me, there's so much more to this story than most people know. And that's because describing what the Galactic Starcruiser was is really hard, but I'll try.
Over the years, Lucasfilm has given us many ways to experience the Star Wars universe. Films that you could watch, novels you could read, games you could play, but the Starcruiser? That was a story you lived. For 3 days, you did not just watch Star Wars, you became part of it. The galaxy unfolded around you. You could choose your role, choose your path, choose your alliances, but above all, you could choose your character. You could be as wise as Yoda, or as smooth as Lando, or as courageous as Rey, or as powerful as Vader. There were no boundaries between you and the story. It surrounded you like the air you breathed. And I'll tell you, it's really hard to explain this to a widespread audience. And for me, as intriguing as the Starcruiser sounded, I never thought I would actually go. Which is odd because I'm actually the perfect demographic. I love role-playing games, I love unique experiences, and growing up, I was a huge fan of Star Wars. I remember specifically seeing the special edition releases in theaters back in 1997, and that sparked my love for filmmaking that led to my career in film and video production. Star Wars has also inspired me to try out brand new things, like running my first ever half marathon, or learning how to game code, or learning how to tinker and build things. I'm also a lifelong Disney fan. Childhood vacations to Disney created some of the happiest family memories I have, and as an adult, that shared love with my partner has played a huge part in our love story.
So experiencing a franchise I loved in a place I loved should have been a perfect fit, right? But there were two things holding me back.
First, I had never LARPed. I enjoyed TTRPGs, but the idea of fully living in character over multiple days seemed like a bridge too far. Second, and this one is far more concrete, the experience was really, really expensive, starting at around $5,000 for a single cabin. And for that money, I wasn't even sure what I would be getting. Was it a Star Wars themed mystery dinner show, a typical Disney stage production, or something else entirely? Spending that much money felt a bit like rolling a chance cube. It could be cool, it could be amazing, or it could be a letdown. So I was content with experiencing it secondhand. Though in the back of my mind, I always kind of thought, one day, maybe. Then, unexpected news.
Only 18 months after opening to much fanfare, the Star Wars Galactic Supercruiser Hotel is preparing for its final voyage.
The Starcruiser was one of several cost-cutting measures announced by Disney, driven by a slumping economy, a world still rocked by a global pandemic, and a corporate shakeup. But the biggest reason,
despite widespread praise from attendees, it ultimately did not meet financial forecasts. With Josh D'Amaro, head of Disney Parks, saying in a June 2023 interview, quote, "We took creativity and storytelling to a completely new level, to a level that had never existed before. It didn't work commercially, and so when we realized that, you just make a call and move on."
Fans and cast members were stunned, especially by how soon that closing would be. September 30th, 2023 would be its last day in operation, and that was only 4 months away. My heart sank. My one day maybe had suddenly turned to never. But then I thought, wait, maybe my maybe could still be a maybe?
Maybe.
Because Disney had frozen new bookings to give guests that had booked past that September closing date a chance to reschedule. And that meant I had about a week to plan an impossible trip. Luckily, I had some help from my friends, who are also fellow Disney and Star Wars fans who always wanted to go. Splitting a cabin would make the cost much more affordable, and the 5 of us decided to give it a try. So on the morning of May 26th at 6 a.m. local time, 2 in our group called the Disney hotline hoping the Force would be with us, and after more than 4 hours, It was. I connected with a clearly overworked but still friendly cast member, and we managed to book one of the last cabins on one of our most preferred dates, which happened to coincide with one of our cabin mates' birthdays. As for cost, it came out to just over $1,500 per person, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But for comparison, as far as interactive roleplay experiences go, one of the top in the world is D&D in a castle, and that costs between $3,000 and $4,000 per person, plus the cost of the rooms. That makes the Starcruiser seem almost like a bargain in comparison. But ultimately, the cost, although it was very significant for us, it was the last thing we were worried about, because we had booked this amazing trip and we were too excited to care. But then, once the excitement faded, reality hit me, and I had a sudden, horrific realization.
Oh no. I need to create a character.
Now, for context, I struggle to create a D&D character for a single session adventure, so when we're talking the Star Wars universe with an infinite galaxy of options, that was nearly impossible. Would I be a fighter, or civilian, resistance, first order, light side, dark? Ultimately, hero or villain? I couldn't decide, so I switched tactics. I decided to just focus on choosing a ship. Maybe that would guide me. So I closed my eyes and I pictured every Star Wars ship I could think of.
I'm gonna be a Starcruiser skipper.
If this was going to be my unique Star Wars story, then it would be my unique Star Wars character. One that blended my love of Disney, Star Wars, and, well, whatever this is.
Oh no.
What the hell is this?
This is the Adventurers Club.
A 1930s tiki bar at Disney's defunct Pleasure Island where innuendo, improv, and cabaret combined into something special. There, a rotating cast of colorful characters led locals, return guests, and confused tourists alike through sing-alongs, sketches, and toasts, before inducting them as full-fledged members of the Adventurers Club. And not to brag, but I'm actually one of those members. See that blurry face in the crowd? That's me, a 20-something-year-old double-crit fail at the club's final weekend in 2008. I felt a strange connection between the Adventurers Club and the Starcruiser and how the audience became part of the story and the unique bond between guest and performer. And though I didn't know it at the time, it turns out a couple of cast members actually performed at both.
Poverty of love.
Yeah.
Poverty of love keeps me hanging through the night. This is
And there was another reason, because exactly 15 years prior to the Starcruiser's closing, almost down to the exact day, Disney closed the Adventurers Club, leaving the building empty and unused despite being a beloved attraction with a passionate fan base. Seems familiar.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
For whatever reason, it felt like the perfect tribute. And so, Gaff Gaffa was born. Starcruise skipper extraordinaire, a thrill-seeking guide leading tourists through dangerous adventures on the jungle planet of Felucia, all while delivering awful original Star Wars puns.
If you look to my left, you'll see the largest sarlacc in the known galaxy. By the way, anyone ever try sarlacc tea? It's just regular old tea, but we throw boba in it.
Gaff was an extension of myself, a bit of a goof, yearning for more than his lot in life. Gaff could have a good heart, but he could also be swayed by the right amount of credits, and his rates surprisingly affordable.
Cheaper than the Galactic Starcruiser, that's for sure.
My friends created their own characters too. Nick and Amanda became Endorian calf farmers. Ginger became Ven, a ship mechanic with a romantic streak. And my wife Courtney, a certain doctor unbound by time and space. With costumes packed, props built, and accessories painstakingly detailed, the day of departure finally arrived, and we realized this was really happening. Arriving was surreal. We passed through backlot security and checked in with Starcruiser staff. Our surroundings slowly changed from reality to sci-fi fantasy as we made our way further into the spaceport. This slow transition seemed deliberate. It not only raised anticipation, but also allowed me to psychologically transform from my real self to the Starcruiser skipper waiting within, both within the Starcruiser and within me. And I wasn't the only one going all in. My fellow passengers were too. I saw smugglers, mechanics, Jedi, Mandalorians, Resistance, First Order, Sith. They all were around me, and I was blown away by the craftsmanship and thought they put into their costumes.
One looked exactly like George Lucas, but another had made most of her entire First Order wardrobe by hand. This Cad Bane looked directly ripped from the screen. And this passenger built a real-life Iron Mandalorian suit, going by the moniker Tony Starkiller.
That attention to detail went beyond costumes and also went into their backstories. In fact, many brought personalized gifts that were tied to those character backstories. Seriously, everything here at the center of this table is a gift I received from another guest, and each one represents an amazing creative person. Through sheer luck, I'd actually 3D printed a few tokens of my own dedicated to the memory of a certain exclusive club, but my only regret is I didn't print more. I made a couple of dozen and they were gone within the first day. I did have one left, but it was a misprint and shipped, so it stayed in my pocket. After a simulated pod launch and docking, the elevator doors opened and I saw with my own eyes the jewel of the Chandrilian Star Line, the Halcyon. There, we were greeted by the Starcruiser's blue crew, each with their own backstory and home planet, and they could have in-depth discussions with you about those stories. It made the whole experience feel more real. A crew member escorted us to our cabin and introduced us to our droid concierge, D309. D309 was fun to interact with, gave helpful advice, and even played D&D with us, so that was cool.
A mysterious stranger appears from nowhere and greets you. Right then, traveler. How do you respond?
She has better voices than me.
The Starcruiser was like a giant playground with several areas to explore, like the atrium, sublight lounge, gift shop, climate simulator, brig, and engineering room. The engineering room especially felt super interactive.
There was also a bridge with several consoles used for bridge training and story missions, as well as a lightsaber training pod, where you could learn to wield a lightsaber.
This ship felt huge, and it wasn't until my second day that I felt I could actually navigate around. And when you explored, you never knew what you would find. Early on in our first day of the voyage, we bumped into a purple Mohawk Rodian named Uwani, led by a blue crew cast member on a private guided tour, and they invited us to join. I couldn't believe it. We had stumbled into this random encounter, one no one else knew about, and now we were having a personal moment with an alien. And that's when it hit me. We were not watching Star Wars, we were living it. We'd soon met other characters, the starry-eyed musician Sandro, the fearless Captain Kevin, the intrepid cruise director Lincoln Mock, the rambunctious droid SK-620, the bumbling mechanic Sammy, the rockstar Queen Gaia, her smooth-talking manager Wraith Cole, and of course...
I am Lieutenant Thomas Croy of the First Order. And a woo to you as well.
And I gotta say, the actors playing these roles were incredible. They were the true heart and soul of the Halcyon. Not only did they deliver excellent performances, they also interacted in real, meaningful, unscripted ways.
This has never happened before.
If this was D&D, you might think of these characters as NPCs, but really, they were more like game masters. They were throwing out plot hooks, guiding players, and even playing along with passengers' personal backstory threads. Seriously, some passengers came aboard with their own ideas for character arcs, and the actors were like, yes, I'm going to make this happen for you. The way that they would listen and adapt to passengers' underlying needs was incredible. What was even more incredible was how seamlessly they did it. When we first met Sandro, half our group didn't even realize he was a character. He just casually came up and started chatting with us as though he were any other passenger. He became like a sixth member of our group, and we'd often chill with him in the atrium to discuss news aboard the ship and write songs, like this one called One Galaxy.
In the face of trials, together as one, but the story has only just begun. Bring it in. All right.
1, 2, 3.
Corellian Corvettes!
While Sandro bonded with our group, I formed a personal bond with a Saja named Kier, one of the humans who helped Force-sensitive passengers discover their powers. The reason for her importance? Well, early on in the voyage, I felt overwhelmed by the sheer scope of everything going on all around me. There was so much to do and explore and so many people to meet and interact with, but I was aimless. You see, the Galactic Starcruiser's narrative was comprised of several intertwining storylines: Resistance, Smuggler, Force, First Order, Romance, and Heist. You took part in these storylines either through datapad missions or by directly interacting with the characters themselves, and it was up to you which you explored and to what degree. In D&D terms, this wasn't a railroad, it was a sandbox. But this highly personalized experience also meant it was impossible to do and see everything. And knowing this would be the only trip I'd ever get, I felt a lot of pressure to make the quote, right choices. But there was no right or wrong choice, there was only my path, and I had to decide which to take. As groups and factions split and formed, I realized I didn't really want to be part of a group. I wanted something more personal. So I walked up to a Saja who didn't seem too busy, and I spoke a phrase I discovered in my datapad.
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Her mood instantly shifted. She glanced around to ensure no First Order were present. Then she led me to an empty room where we sat on the floor and chatted about Gap's background and connection to the Force. We were discovered by a third passenger named Eli, and even though sometimes I have trouble introducing myself to new people, it felt completely natural to invite him into our group, and the three of us just sat in that circle in that room completely alone and talked. We talked about the Force, we talked about the Republic, we talked about the Clone Wars, and it was this really cool moment. The three of us felt like our own little group, and we had this camaraderie where we checked in with each other for the rest of the voyage. It felt genuine. Which brings me to a concept in LARP called bleed. I had never really LARPed, so this was new to me. It's a phenomenon where the line between character and performer blurs, and how the emotions of the character might affect the real person and vice versa. The same felt true of the relationships I was making aboard the Halcyon. Each one felt real. Running into a character I had interacted with previously felt like bumping into an old friend, and it seemed totally reciprocal, because when you would meet a character for the first time, you would give a name, real or fictional, and for the rest of the voyage, they would remember you, and they would call you out by name.
Everyone can learn from this, actually, especially the younglings, and Gafar over there.
I'm on a first-name basis with Gafar. I call him Gap.
And he calls me Lieutenant Croy, so second name's here.
To be called the impersonal surname Gaffa by an annoyed Lieutenant Croy, or be on a first-name basis with Captain Riola Kevin, made these relationships feel more authentic and individualized. While I was exploring the Force, my friends were making shadier dealings. They'd met Wraith Cole, who had conscripted them to steal something called the Hyananea Stone, a priceless artifact under rigorous guard on the Halcyon. But to succeed, he needed a crew. Kier had mentioned Wraith in one of our earlier talks, so he was on my radar, but it was my friends who introduced us. Surprisingly, I found out he was more than just a scoundrel with a quick wit. He also had a heart. Because in a twist I wasn't expecting, he wasn't stealing the stone for himself. He was doing it for and along with Gaia, the Rockstar Queen. He shared the plight of Gaia's homeworld, Ryloth, how they faced exploitation of resources, riches, and people, how the Hyananea Stone had been stolen from them, and how no matter who won the balance of power within the galaxy, Ryloth had always lost. But with the Hyananea Stone, it could reclaim its power, its independence, its hope. This wasn't stealing, it was repatriation. Of course Gaff was going to help. While all this was going down, a larger story escalated to the background, the power struggle between Resistance and First Order. Because while Captain Kevin attended to her duties, Lieutenant Croy investigated suspicious Resistance activities, directing his covert spies and First Order operatives across the board as he methodically seized control of the ship piece by piece. And these spies, they were our fellow real-life passengers.
Oh, yes, continue that, and don't you forget it.
So when clues were given out about Resistance activities, some were secretly relaying all this information to Lieutenant Croy. And that's what made this game amazing. We were all playing it together. We all felt connected. We were all part of this bigger story. Day 1 ended with a dinner performance by Gaia, which was interrupted by the arrest of Chewbacca. Yes, tensions were running high between First Order and Resistance, and it seemed like the Halcyon was becoming a center point of the Galactic War.
They need to get off the ship! Don't they need to get off the ship? And do better! Do better!
But that power struggle was other people's problems, not Gaff's. I hardly got involved with Resistance dealings, other than causing the casual distraction as passengers smuggled Chewbacca aboard, or the time I locked stormtroopers in the ship's brig to help free the Resistance droid SK. The rest of the time, I was focused on the Force path, as well as helping my friends with their Hyananea heist. The next day, we took an excursion to Batu, complete with faction missions. First, we gathered materials for a Toydarian named Zabaka who created a counterfeit Hyananea stone. Then, we split up as Nick, Amanda, and Ven completed resistance missions for Captain Kevin, while my wife and I recovered Jedi artifacts on behalf of the Saja. These missions were like in-park scavenger hunts where you scanned QR codes and completed minigames, and they were vastly different from the personal interactions you had aboard the ship, though I still found them fun. Then again, I find rolling D20s to be absolutely riveting. 17. So take my opinion with a grain of great salt. Even more fun, getting to walk around in full Star Wars costumes, something usually prohibited by Disney, was really cool. Especially because many of my fellow passengers literally looked like characters from the movie. It made me feel connected to this world, like I was a part of the theming. And Batuans recognized us as Halcyon passengers and made us feel special. A vendor from the Droid Factory interviewed me with a tiny little robotic arm as a microphone and laughed at my terrible Star Wars puns. Resistance Spy V gave us tips on avoiding stormtroopers. A pair of First Order officers mocked Lieutenant Croy when we name-dropped him. And even Hondo Onaka gave us a shout out.
Well, passengers from that fancy Galaxy Cruiser, let's see if those coordinates from your contact are any good.
But as fun as Batu was, we couldn't wait to reboard the Halcyon for something we were all very excited about. This was the Spirits of Adventure, a paid experience offering libations from across the galaxy, expertly mixed by a sublight lounge chemist named Chris, who regaled us with in-universe tales of how each drink came to be. The drinks were incredible, and Chris's stories even more so. It was one of the Starcruiser's best hidden gems. And after drinks, we dove right back into the narrative. But first, we had to save Sandro and Iwani's relationship. Because amidst all the lightsaber training, heist scheming, and coaxium smuggling, a blossoming romance developed between our friend Sandro and the adorable Rodian Iwani. But Sandro, as sweet as he was awful at relationships. Luckily, our party's mechanic Ven was a true romantic and dedicated her time guiding Sandro and out of Iwani's heart. Seriously, this was now Ven's biggest priority, to the point that when the rest of us rushed off to a secret meeting with Wraith, Ven stayed behind to help Sandro write Iwani a love song, which actually brought them together. And funny enough, this love song also involved sweat.
I'm sorry that I'm sweating, but I am regretting last night. I hope it's alright.
I mentioned this not only to show how many storylines were happening simultaneously, but also to highlight how much control you had over your own destiny. You could jump between storylines, choose where to be and when, decide your own missions, choose allegiances, forge friendships, and interact with specific characters. My story felt uniquely mine. I never felt confined to a single path. Every interaction with each character was an invitation to something special, and that led our party to some incredible moments I might have otherwise missed. What were some of these moments? Fighting off an army of TIE fighters to help Wraith and Hondo Onaka smuggle coaxium on board, with my wife not only at the helm leading the attack, but also pushing us into light speed. Celebrating Amanda's very real birthday along with Wraith Cole, Lanka Mock, and several passengers on the Starcruiser bridge.
Congratulations.
And then there was Wraith's heist itself. Wraith divvied out jobs for each member of Gaia's crew, and ours was to distract Sammy, the mechanic, and we did so with an impromptu modeling shoot, complete with Wraith photobombing our image scans. And then the heist was also incredibly special for another reason, because one passenger used a real-life marriage proposal as a distraction for Wraith to swap the Hyananea stone. I've heard sometimes couples will use fake proposals during this part of the mission, but this one was 100% real and beautiful to witness. Also beautiful was the aftermath of seeing Wraith return the Hyananea stone to Gaia, who thanked all of us for our help and gave a moving speech on overcoming oppression as well as the power of hope that brought many to tears. After all of these amazing side quests, it was time for me to rejoin my main Jedi path. I had already connected with Saja Kier, learned lightsaber training from Saja Tyser, built a lightsaber in Savi's workshop, and assisted in the recovery of an ancient Jedi artifact. Now it was time to see what that artifact was. Those allied to the Saja secretly gathered in the lightsaber training pod, where Rey and Saja Tyser welcomed us. They then revealed a holocron. Our job was to help them open it.
Concentrate. Tyser! You got it! Yes, we have. Escape port.
Greetings. Open this, you have. Strong with the Force.
This holocron and message within would become a big part of the ship's finale. And that finale genuinely surprised me when it happened. We were in the middle of dinner and an alarm went off and I had no idea what was going on.
Attention, this is a ship-wide alert. Please report to your muster stations immediately.
We gathered at our muster stations for the story climax, only to find that Lieutenant Croy had taken complete control of the ship.
Effective immediately. I am in command. How's this for a power move?
What followed was a climactic lightsaber battle between Kylo Ren and Rey. And while I had seen clips of this fight before going, being there in person brought it to a whole new level, because throughout the fight, you saw the culmination of each passenger's contributions to their respective storylines. The First Order passengers who'd sabotaged the Halcyon systems, the Resistance passengers who installed coaxium to save it, the Smuggler passengers who provided that coaxium, and the Jedi passengers who assisted Rey in escaping Kylo. These had been parts of our individual stories, and now they were coming together as one. Witnessing Rey fight Kylo, a Rey who I had met, a Rey who I had helped, a Rey who knew my name, it hit different. Especially seeing other characters I loved fight to protect the Halcyon and its passengers. These were all my friends, and I cared about these characters. Heck, I even cared when Lieutenant Croy was being force-choked. It gave me an unexpected twinge of visceral anger. I wasn't expecting it. He was the BBEG, but he was the best at BBEGs, and I loved him for it. It's crazy how much immersive storytelling can draw you in. But under my excitement flowed a current of sadness, because since this was the climax, it also meant this was the end.
May the Force be with you.
Interactive storytelling has this special way of elevating emotions, be they joy, or anger, or sadness, or love, or loss. Especially when reality bleeds through. Since our voyage was at the tail end of the Starcruiser's run, a few actors were performing their roles for the last time, and that was hard to witness. Because these performers really cared. They cared about the Starcruiser, they cared about us, the guests, and they cared about each other. They had a special bond. Many of them had created this journey from the beginning. They'd been part of the workshops to bring these characters to life. This was something that they cherished, and it would all be gone soon. There's a scene at the end of the adventure. It's just like this nice, sweet little moment between Captain Kevin and Lincoln Mock, and in fact, it's the last lines of the big story before they have their big fireworks show finale. And Lincoln Mock is supposed to deliver a line that says, "Here's the end of an incredible journey." But I'm pretty sure for our Linka, this was her final show. And these were her final lines. Her final lines. So she starts, she says, "Here's to the end." And then she stops. Tears are welling up in her eyes. She has to take a moment to regroup. And Kevin, the actor, is consoling her. And you knew, even though that this was a scripted line, we're no longer watching a scripted moment. This is a real moment between two incredibly talented actors sharing something incredibly special for the last time. So she takes her beat, and then she continues. "Here's to the end of one extraordinary journey." And Captain Kevin responds to the beginning of 1,000 more. Characters stuck around and said their goodbyes and tied up any loose plot points personal to individual passengers, which have been entirely created between guest and performer. And just like at the beginning of my journey, I sought out saw Jakir, and I thanked her for everything, and I didn't think I was going to do this, but I went ahead and reached in my pocket, and I pulled out my last Adventurers Club token, the one that I didn't give out because it was imperfect and flawed, but, Gaff was flawed, and I'm flawed, and we're all flawed, so it seemed appropriate. We attended a post-show dessert party, and we were all kind of feeling down at that moment, but then we saw Sandro on stage, the musician, the unofficial 6th member of our crew, and he was on stage with Ulani, who in the fiction we had brought the two of them together, or specifically Vin had brought the two of them together, and he announced that he would be performing his new song, and at that moment, Sandro went off script, and we saw the performer behind the character for a moment. And he told us that he was happy because this was the last time he played that song. And we all laughed, and, he very quickly clarified that he was happy because it was an incredibly special moment, and it was one that he was getting to share with us. And he spoke of how much this experience meant to him personally, and how even though the Halcyon and the characters and the story would also become legend, we were all lucky because we were there. And then Sandro played the opening chord to One Galaxy. And this is a song that encaps every voyage, but it's always unique because the lyrics are always written by passengers aboard the Starcruiser for that voyage. And that night, he played the version written by the Carillion Corvettes, the one that we all had written collectively in the atrium, just a small group of us. And he came up during the song, and he embraced us, and no one, especially not Disney, could have written a better ending for our party's story. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Starcruiser closed forever. And with it, the highest rated, most personalized, unbelievably memorable experience Disney had ever produced was lost. I'm gonna make a bold claim, but I honestly mean it. It was the best attraction I had visited in my close to 40 years of attending Disney theme parks. And it was the closest I'd ever felt to Star Wars, a world I loved. In its 18-month run, the Galactic Starcruiser embarked on 274 voyages and welcomed 71,000 passengers, less than half the number of people who visit Disney World in a single day. But that's 71,000 unique and deeply personal Star Wars stories. Stories of love, stories of hope, stories of adventure. It could have been more, and it should have been more. Because so many never got the chance to experience the greatest Star Wars story never told, their own. 16 years after the Adventurers Club closed, its legend still lives on as fans gather, performers reunite, and people share and watch videos of the old club online. Now, a year after the closing of the Galactic Starcruiser, its fans are doing the same. They meticulously document storylines, rebuild virtual environments, create incredible props, post tribute videos and songs, produce full-length documentaries, hang impromptu memorials, and attend fan meetups, sometimes joined by the cast members, actors, and creators who brought it all to life. Because as it turns out, those people really did, and still do, care. So to everyone involved in the creation of the Galactic Starcruiser, I just want to say thank you. To game designers who wove storylines for us to engage, to writers who wrote dialogue that captivated, entertained, and moved us, to artisans who built worlds for us to explore, to chefs and servers who prepared and served us incredible cuisine and beverages, to every Blue Crew member who made each day magical, to technicians running the show, to unsung heroes working behind the scenes, and to those amazing, capable, unforgettable, caring performers who forged real relationships with us. Thank you. Was your work worth it? From the bottom of my heart, absolutely. Because for me, the Starcruiser was life-changing. And not because of the immersive costumes or special effects or decor or food that brought fantasy to life, as incredible as it all was. No, it changed my life because of everything that was real. The real friends I made, the real lessons I learned about storytelling, the real improv classes I took in preparation that made me comfortable to even be on camera for a video like this, the real emotions I felt, and the real lifelong memories I made with my wife and friends that brought us all closer together. All of these things happened because of the Starcruiser. It's nearly impossible to describe what the Starcruiser was because it's nearly impossible to describe how it felt, but I'll try. I assume many returning viewers of this channel understand D&D and other TTRPGs, but for those who don't, D&D is a limitless world of possibility, where imagination, heart, and storytelling come together in a transcendent way. It's a world of thrilling adventure and emotional, personal journeys. It's about exploring challenging themes and struggles in a safe space. But above all, it's about the friends sitting beside you at the table. The Galactic Starcruiser was that, but in real life. If you want to see more Starcruiser content, please check out the videos in my description, like the amazing tribute video Away, featuring music by Sandro performer Bryce David Larson. Other favorites include this 9-hour series by Paige Borders that shows a complete voyage in first-person POV, as well as this incredible playlist by Star Wars and theme park superfans, Ordinary Adventures. I also want to thank all the YouTubers and my fellow passengers who provided me with amazing image scans and videos for this project. And most of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Your support, be it with a like, comment, share, or even just watching all the way to the end, means the world to me. If you were lucky enough to be a passenger on the Starcruiser, I'd love to hear your story and what it meant to you. And if you didn't go, but would have if given the chance, let me know what character you would have created. Thanks for joining me in remembering the legacy of the Galactic Starcruiser and the amazing stories we all shared there. Together, as one.
If you liked this video, my name's been Gav Gaffa. Please share, like, or subscribe. If you didn't like this video, my name's been Not Whiskey Papanoida.